I want to talk a little bit today about why I have such disdain for lack of authenticity, both in life and in business. And I want to share a story that I've never really shared with anyone else, including my family, as to how this has affected me. But um, my aunt, my dad's sister, had cystic fibrosis, and I never had the opportunity to meet her. She died, before I was born. But there's a story about her life, and as it relates to my grandfather, that really made a huge impact on my life. And the situation was this: they lived in southern Ohio and were members of a church in a little town called Ripley. And um, my aunt was growing up with cystic fibrosis, and if you don't know what CF is, cystic fibrosis, it's a disease that causes persistent lung infections. And with that, some of the symptoms are persistent coughing and lung infections and lots of other symptoms. But the coughing and the fluid on the lungs is one of the major symptoms of CF. And one day, the pastor from the church that they belonged to came to see my grandpa and grandma and asked them not to bring my Aunt Carol back to church anymore because she was scaring the congregation. And my grandfather's response was, well, our shadows will never darken the doorstep of that church ever again. And I have, growing up, I had a real issue with this because, faith is something that's big, that's really important to my family. And the lack of authenticity of the members and the pastor of that congregation really had an impact on me. And honestly, I've been a member of a lot of churches over the years, and it wasn't until recently that I really found a church that seemed to have serious authenticity, and that's Life Point Church. If you want to send me a private email, I'll be happy to tell you a little about the church. But that's not the point of this video. The point of the video is that made a serious impact on me about how when people present themselves in one way and then act in a different, the far-reaching impact of those actions. And I've really tried to live my life, and we certainly run our business based on authenticity, being what we tell you we are. And when I got into real estate, one of the first things you do is you learn about the Realtor Code of Ethics and fiduciary responsibilities and all of these other things, and it was really alarming to me how widespread a lack of authenticity in these areas are in our business. Um, you know, pretty much all realtors will tell you they're going to work in your best interest, and they'll use the term like fiduciary responsibility. But in reality, many agents can't even explain to you what their fiduciary responsibilities are. And a lot of times you'll see, you won't see as a client, but I've seen backroom deals made to protect their commission at the expense of their client. I see them promise you in the beginning fiduciary responsibility and then enter into dual agency scenarios, and several of those elements of their fiduciary responsibility goes out the window because they don't apply in a scenario where the agent's supposedly representing both the buyer and the seller. And it made, when we began to see this, we knew that one of the things that we were never going to do was compromise our authenticity for our clients. And in fact, we have three words that define our mission and what we do for our clients: authenticity, generosity, and excellence. And authenticity comes first because that's what That's how we start everything we do. When we tell you we're putting your interests above our own, you can take it to the bank. That's what's going to happen. And I really tie, this in our business, in my business, my personal view of our business and in my life back to that story of Carol and my grandfather. And my grandfather was one of the most genuine, authentic people I've ever known. In fact, if I heard him say, one time I heard him say 100 times that, especially when he'd be talking about, a female, a lady, he would say she's just as pretty on the inside as she is on the outside, meaning, that's self-explanatory. But another saying that he always had was, they're the same no matter where you see them. And that really stuck with me. I can guarantee you that when you're dealing with my team, our team, that what you see is what you get. We're going to give you 100% authenticity, and we will put your interests above our own. That's really important to me. And it's important that that's what our reputation is, because we've worked really hard to make a great business in real estate, and to do it without ever compromising those values. And I have a painting portrait of my Aunt Carol that's in my home. I never met her. I love her because she was my dad's sister, even though I never met her. But what she reminds me of every time I see that portrait is what the lack of authenticity did to my family. My early stage of life, church was absent, and it's because of that. Now, talking faith for a minute, and just being fully transparent and authentic with you, God is good, because even though I grew up not in the church, and I know there were many, many, many years that my dad never went to church because of this incident that I described to you. We were 500 miles apart. I was in Virginia, he was in Ohio. And I remember a phone call that I shared with my dad. This is in maybe 1990, 1991. Somewhere in that area. I called him and I said, "Guess what I did?" And he said, "Guess what I did?" And we both accepted Christ the same day, independently of each other, never having talked about it. So, despite the lack of authenticity of those people, God still did what He needed to do in our life. But I digress there a little bit. But that portrait of Carol's in my house to remind me that above all else I do, I'm going to be authentic.